Anxiety is strange. It can ruin a perfectly good day. Without a single thing actually going wrong, you wake up, nothing is on fire, nobody's chasing you, no disaster has happened, and yet your chest feels tight, your mind feels crowded, and some invisible weight follows you everywhere. What's even stranger, most people spend years trying to escape anxiety without ever understanding where it actually comes from. They blame their job, their finances, their relationships, their circumstances. But what if they're fighting the wrong enemy? What if the thing causing your anxiety isn't what you think it is? Because here's a disturbing truth. Two people can face the exact same problem. One panics, the other remains calm. One loses sleep, the other moves forward with clarity. Same situation, completely different experience. Why? The Stoics believed they knew the answer, and their answer changes everything. Most people think anxiety comes from their circumstances. The Stoics believed something different. They believed anxiety comes from the stories we tell ourselves about those circumstances. And that changes everything. Because if anxiety is created in the mind, then the mind can also learn to dismantle it. Think about that. The thing you've been trying to run from may actually be something you can learn to master. Nearly 2,000 years ago, men like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca faced wars, exile, betrayal, disease, uncertainty, and death. Things far worse than most modern anxieties. Yet somehow they remained remarkably calm, not because life was easy, but because they understood something most people never learn. A secret so powerful that it helped emperors sleep during wars. Philosophers remain calm during exile, and ordinary people find peace in a chaotic world. And here's the shocking part. Most of those habits are almost completely forgotten today. In this video, you'll discover 5 Stoic habits that quietly eliminate anxiety at its source. Not temporary relief, not distractions, not coping mechanisms. Actual mental frameworks that make anxiety lose its grip. Some of these habits will feel surprisingly simple. One of them may even sound completely backwards. But the final habit, the one used by Roman emperors, generals, and philosophers, has the power to change how you respond to every problem for the rest of your life. And once you understand it, you'll never look at anxiety the same way again. Habit 1, separate facts from stories. Here's a question. What exactly are you anxious about? Most people answer immediately, my future, my job, my relationship, my finances. But look closer, is that really what's causing the anxiety? Or is it the story you're telling yourself about it? Because something strange happens inside the human mind. A tiny event occurs, and seconds later, it becomes a disaster. Imagine your boss sends you a message, "We need to talk tomorrow." That's the fact. Just 6 words, nothing more, no threat, no warning, no evidence of catastrophe. But then the mind gets involved. I'm getting fired, I must have done something wrong. What if I lose everything? What will people think? What if this changes my entire future? Notice what happened. Nothing actually changed. The message stayed exactly the same, but your emotional state completely transformed. Why? Because the mind filled in the blanks. And most of the time, it fills them with fear. Suddenly, a 6-word message becomes a full-blown catastrophe. A delayed text message becomes rejection. A mistake becomes failure. A setback becomes proof you're doomed. One awkward conversation becomes evidence that nobody likes you. One uncertainty becomes 100 worst-case scenarios. And the frightening part is, most people don't even realize they're doing it. They think they're reacting to reality, when they're actually reacting to a story. The Stoics noticed something fascinating. Events don't disturb us. Our interpretations do. Think about that. 2 people can experience the exact same situation. One falls apart. The other stays calm. The difference isn't the event. The difference is the meaning they attach to it. And once you see this, you start catching anxiety in the act. You begin noticing how quickly the mind turns possibilities into certainties, how it predicts outcomes it cannot know, how it creates problems that don't yet exist. And anxiety feeds on those assumptions. The less evidence it has, the more imagination it uses. That's why the Stoics developed a simple practice. Whenever anxiety appeared, they asked, what are the facts, not the fears, not the predictions, not the assumptions, not the stories, just the facts. What's actually happening right now? What do I know for certain? What evidence do I truly have? And something remarkable happens. The monster immediately shrinks because facts are usually much smaller than the stories attached to them. The facts might say, my boss wants to talk. The story says, my career is over. The facts might say, they haven't replied yet. The story says, they're losing interest. The facts might say, I made a mistake. The story says, I'm a failure. See the difference? One is reality. The other is imagination, pretending to be reality. And most anxiety isn't happening in reality. It's happening in imagination. That's why separating facts from stories is so powerful. Because the moment you separate the two, you stop fighting ghosts. You stop suffering from futures that haven't happened. And you reclaim your power. But even after you learn this, a bigger problem remains, because sometimes the facts themselves are frightening. Sometimes the uncertainty is real. Sometimes the challenge is unavoidable. And that's where the second habit comes in. Control the controllable. This is the foundation of Stoic philosophy. And simultaneously, the most misunderstood idea in self-improvement. In fact, most people hear this idea their entire lives and never truly understand it. The Stoics divided all existence into two columns: things within my control, things outside my control. Simple, almost too simple, which is why so many people underestimate it. But hidden inside those two categories is a solution to much of the anxiety people carry every day. Your boss criticizes your work, outside your control. Your response, within your control. A flight gets cancelled, outside your control. What you do next, within your control. Someone dislikes you, outside your control. Your character, within your control. The economy changes, outside your control. Your actions, within your control. Life keeps moving, outside your control. The way you meet it, within your control. Simple, but life-changing. Now here's the uncomfortable truth. Most anxiety comes from fighting battles we can never win. Battles we were never meant to win. Trying to control other people's opinions, trying to control the future, trying to control outcomes, trying to control uncertainty itself, trying to guarantee that nothing goes wrong. And if you've ever tried that, you already know how it ends. Exhaustion. Frustration, overthinking, more anxiety. Because trying to control the uncontrollable is like trying to stop the wind with your bare hands. No matter how hard you try, the wind doesn't care, it keeps blowing. And every failed attempt leaves you more exhausted than before. The Stoics understood something most people spend years learning the hard way. Peace begins where control ends. Read that again. Peace begins where control ends. Not because life suddenly becomes predictable, but because you stop demanding that it be predictable. The moment you stop demanding certainty from life, life becomes lighter. Not easier, lighter. Because you're no longer carrying responsibilities that were never yours to carry. Think about that. How much of your anxiety comes from problems that don't belong to you? The opinions of strangers, the decisions of other people, the future, the outcome. The uncertainty, things no human being has ever been able to fully control. Yet millions of people wake up every morning trying anyway. And every evening, they wonder why they're exhausted. Here's a question. What if your anxiety isn't caused by uncertainty? What if it's caused by your resistance to uncertainty? That's a completely different problem and a completely different solution. Because uncertainty isn't going anywhere. Life has always been uncertain. The Stoics knew that. What changes is your relationship with it. Instead of asking, how do I control everything? Ask, what is mine to control right now? Not tomorrow, not next year, not every possible outcome, not every worst case scenario, just this moment, just the next step, just the next action. Because action is where power lives. Anxiety wants you to stare at the entire mountain. Action asks you to take the next step. Anxiety wants certainty before movement. Wisdom teaches movement before certainty. And that's why action is so powerful, because anxiety lives in the future. Action lives in the present. Anxiety grows through endless thinking. Action grows through doing. One creates helplessness. The other creates momentum. And momentum is one of the greatest enemies anxiety has, because when you're fully engaged in what you can do, you have less energy to obsess over what you can't, and that's where anxiety begins to lose its grip. But the next habit goes even deeper, because it attacks anxiety at its favorite hiding place, the future itself. Habit 3, practice negative visualization. This habit sounds depressing until you understand it. In fact, when most people first hear this idea, they immediately reject it. Why would I spend time imagining bad things? Wouldn't that make me more anxious? That's what most people assume. The Stoics discovered the opposite. And once you understand why, you'll never look at fear the same way again. Most people spend their lives trying not to think about bad things. They avoid them, suppress them, distract themselves from them, push them into the back of their minds. The Stoics did the opposite. They intentionally imagined them. At first, that sounds insane. Why think about what could go wrong? Why voluntarily walk toward uncomfortable thoughts? Because the mind fears what it refuses to face. Think about a child lying awake at night. A strange sound comes from the closet. The room is dark. They can't see what's inside. So the imagination takes over. Suddenly there are monsters, threats, dangers, things that don't actually exist. But the moment the light comes on, everything changes. The fear begins to disappear. Not because the room changed, because reality became visible. And that's exactly what negative visualization does. It turns on the light. Imagine standing outside a dark room. You don't know what's inside. Your imagination creates monsters, but once you turn on the light, most of those monsters disappear. The Stoics understood something profound. The unknown is often more frightening than reality itself. So they deliberately examined their fears, not obsessively, not emotionally, calmly, rationally. They would occasionally imagine losing things they valued, their possessions, their status, their comfort, their reputation, even people they loved. Not because they wanted those things to happen, and not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they wanted to prepare their minds for reality. Because reality makes no guarantees, and pretending otherwise doesn't make life safer. It only makes us more fragile. Here's the paradox. The more they contemplated loss, the less anxiety they felt. That sounds backwards, but think about it. Anxiety feeds on uncertainty. It feeds on unanswered questions. It feeds on fears we refuse to examine. The moment you face those fears directly, they begin losing their power because uncertainty loses its mystery. Think about your biggest fear, the one that occasionally keeps you awake at night, the one you try not to think about. Now imagine it happening, not emotionally, practically. What would you actually do? Who would you call? Where would you go? How would you adapt? How would you recover? What strengths would you discover? What options would still remain? Notice what just happened. Your mind stopped panicking and started problem solving. That's the Stoic shift. And it's one of the most powerful mental shifts you'll ever make. Anxiety says, what if everything goes wrong? Wisdom says, if it does, what will I do next? Anxiety imagines disaster. Wisdom prepares for reality. Anxiety sees the end. Wisdom sees the next step. One creates helplessness, the other creates strength, and strength is poison to anxiety, because anxiety thrives when you believe you can't handle what comes next. Negative visualization reminds you that you can. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not comfortably, but you can. The Stoics weren't trying to predict the future. They were training themselves to trust their ability to face it. And that's a completely different mindset, because true confidence isn't believing bad things will never happen. True confidence is knowing you'll survive if they do. And once you reach that point, fear starts losing its authority over your life. But the fourth habit might be the most surprising of all, because it has nothing to do with the future and everything to do with this moment. Habit 4, return to the present moment. Most people live in 3 places: the past, the future, and occasionally the present. Think about a moment that's actually real is often the one we spend the least time in. Anxiety almost always exists in the future. Regret almost always exists in the past. Peace is here, now. And yet most people spend their lives mentally traveling everywhere except the present moment, replaying old conversations, reliving old mistakes, imagining future disasters, preparing for problems that may never arrive, fighting battles that don't even exist yet, and then wondering why they're exhausted. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of something profound. You only ever live one moment at a time. That's it. Not tomorrow, not next month, not next year. This moment, right here, right now. But here's what most people do. They take the worries of tomorrow, the regrets of yesterday, the responsibilities of next year, and pile them all onto today. No wonder they feel overwhelmed. Imagine trying to carry every grocery bag in a single trip. Every bag, every box, every bottle all at once. The weight becomes unbearable. Not because any single item is too heavy, but because you're carrying everything simultaneously. That's how most people treat life. Every future responsibility, every unfinished task, every possible problem, every hypothetical disaster, all at once, and the mind eventually collapses under the weight. The Stoics refused to do that. Instead, they narrowed their focus, relentlessly. What is required of me right now, not later? Not eventually, not next week, right now, because that's the only place action is possible. The future exists in imagination, the past exists in memory, but action exists here in this moment. And here's the strange thing. When you focus entirely on the present moment, anxiety struggles to survive. Because anxiety requires mental time travel. It requires futures that haven't happened yet. It requires scenarios that exist only in your imagination. It requires you to leave the present. The moment you return, its grip begins to weaken. Think about the last time you felt completely absorbed in something. A conversation, a workout, a project, a walk, a game. For those moments, where was the anxiety? Usually nowhere, because your attention was fully engaged with what was in front of you. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology. Attention is powerful. Where attention goes, experience follows. If your attention constantly lives in imagined futures, anxiety follows. If your attention returns to the present, peace becomes possible, not because your problems disappear, but because you're finally dealing with reality instead of imagination. Bring your attention back to what's directly in front of you. The next breath, the next task, the next conversation, the next step. Not the next year, just the next step, because life is never lived all at once. It's lived moment by moment. And when you truly understand that, something remarkable happens. The future stops feeling so overwhelming because you realize you don't have to carry it today. But there's one final habit. And if you've ever felt trapped by fear, if you've ever felt powerless against uncertainty, this might be the most important idea you'll ever hear. Habit 5. Accept what happens. Most anxiety comes from one hidden belief, a belief so common that most people never notice it. This shouldn't be happening. The traffic shouldn't exist. The setback shouldn't exist. The rejection shouldn't exist. The uncertainty shouldn't exist. The delay shouldn't exist. The failure shouldn't exist. Life should be going according to plan. But reality says it does, and the battle begins. A battle millions of people fight every day, not against reality itself, but against the fact that reality refuses to match their expectations. And here's the tragedy. Reality always wins, every time. The Stoics understood something that most people spend their entire lives resisting. Pain is often unavoidable. Suffering is often resistance. Because the event hurts once, resistance makes it hurt 1,000 times. You lose the opportunity and then suffer because it happened. You get rejected and then suffer because you think it shouldn't have happened. You face uncertainty and then suffer because you demand certainty. The event strikes once. The mind keeps striking itself afterward. That's why the Stoics viewed acceptance as a form of strength, not weakness. Strength. Marcus Aurelius practiced something called acceptance of fate, not passive surrender, not helplessness, not giving up. Acceptance. The understanding that reality is already reality, and fighting reality only creates additional pain. Think about how much energy people waste arguing with what already exists, arguing with the past, arguing with circumstances, arguing with outcomes, arguing with facts, as if reality might suddenly change its mind. It never does. Imagine standing in the ocean trying to stop the waves, pushing against them, demanding they disappear, insisting they shouldn't be there. You'd exhaust yourself, not because the waves are powerful, but because you're fighting something that was never yours to control. But the moment you learn to move with them, everything changes. The waves remain, yet your suffering decreases. The challenge remains, yet your resistance disappears. And suddenly you have energy again. Energy to think, energy to act, energy to adapt. That's how the Stoics approached life, not by wishing reality were different, but by asking a better question. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? They asked, now that this has happened, what can I do with it? Think about the difference. The first question looks backward. The second looks forward. The first creates helplessness. The second creates possibility. The first keeps you trapped. The second moves you into action. And that single shift can change an entire life. Because the moment you stop asking why reality exists and start asking how you'll respond to it, you reclaim your power. That question transforms victims into creators, problems into opportunities, fear into action, and anxiety into resilience. Because anxiety desperately wants guarantees. It wants certainty, it wants promises, it wants complete control over an uncontrollable world. Life never provides those things, and that's exactly why anxiety never feels satisfied. There is always another uncertainty, another possibility, another risk, another future to worry about. The Stoics understood something far more powerful. Freedom doesn't come from controlling life. Freedom comes from becoming strong enough to face whatever life brings. Read that again. Freedom doesn't come from controlling life. Freedom comes from becoming strong enough to face whatever life brings. Because once you truly believe that, the future becomes less frightening, not because bad things can't happen, but because you trust yourself to handle them. And that's a completely different kind of confidence, a confidence that isn't built on certainty, a confidence that isn't built on comfort, a confidence that isn't built on guarantees, a confidence built on character, a confidence built on resilience, a confidence built on the knowledge that whatever comes, you will meet it. And that is a confidence that cannot be taken away. Think about what we've covered. Separate facts from stories, control the controllable, practice negative visualization, return to the present moment, accept what happens. 5 habits, simple, ancient, powerful, and yet almost nobody practices them consistently. That's why anxiety continues to dominate modern life. People keep searching for external solutions to an internal problem. More information, more certainty, more control, more reassurance, another book, another podcast, another productivity system, another promise that finally everything will feel okay. Yet the anxiety remains, because the problem was never a lack of information, it was a lack of perspective. The Stoics understood something most people never learn. Peace doesn't come from controlling the world, it comes from mastering your relationship with the world. And that's a profound difference. Because the world has always been uncertain. It was uncertain for Marcus Aurelius, it was uncertain for Seneca, it was uncertain for Epictetus, and it will be uncertain for us. The future will always contain unanswered questions, unexpected setbacks, unpredictable outcomes, things beyond our control. The Stoics didn't try to eliminate those realities, they learned how to remain steady in the middle of them. And that's the real goal. Not a life without challenges, a mind that isn't destroyed by them. The truth is, anxiety may knock on your door, it always will. You're human. Fear will visit, doubt will visit, uncertainty will visit. No philosophy can stop them from arriving. But with these habits, you stop treating them like permanent residents. You stop giving them the keys, you stop allowing them to control your decisions. They may knock, but they no longer get to live in your house. And maybe that's what true freedom really is, not the absence of fear, but the ability to move forward despite it, not the absence of uncertainty, but the ability to remain calm within it, not the absence of difficulty, but the confidence that you can face whatever comes next, because that's what the Stoics were really teaching. Not how to control life, but how to stop life from controlling you. So the next time anxiety appears, remember these 5 habits. Separate facts from stories, control the controllable, practice negative visualization, return to the present moment, accept what happens, practice them consistently. And little by little, you'll notice something changing. The things that once overwhelmed you start losing their power. The fears that once controlled you start feeling smaller. And the peace you've been searching for stops feeling so far away. If you found this video valuable, subscribe for more timeless lessons from Stoicism and self-mastery. And remember, you don't need a calmer world, you need a calmer mind, and that journey begins today.